All right, so let's dive into something a little different today. We're gonna talk about Diddy and specifically his Thanksgiving in jail. You heard that right? Diddy, Puff Daddy, P Diddy, whatever you want to call him, spent Thanksgiving at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. This after being denied bail multiple times. So he's facing some serious charges, sex trafficking and racketeering, and well.
Yeah, not exactly the lavish Thanksgiving we'd picture for a hip hop mogul, right?
No, not at all.
It's definitely a different scene than what we're used to seeing from him. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the guy who's known for his parties, his extravagance,
Absolutely.
and to be spending Thanksgiving in a detention center, it's quite a contrast.
Yeah, stark contrast. And speaking of contrasts, what we're going to dive into today is what his Thanksgiving actually looked like. We actually have the menu from the detention center,
Yeah.
thanks to an article in Fox News. And while it's not exactly bread and water, it's also not a Diddy style feast.
Right, right. It's actually surprisingly traditional. You get your turkey, your mashed potatoes, gravy, even pie for dessert.
They did him a solid with the pie.
Yeah, they did. But it really does make you think about the vast difference between his typical lifestyle
Yeah.
and the realities of being incarcerated.
Absolutely. And speaking of holidays and lockup, this wasn't his first rodeo. He also spent his 55th birthday in jail. And the menu for that one was a little different. Pasta and salad for lunch, which is kind of interesting, and fried rice for dinner. So there's some variety there. It's not all, just the standard prison fare, I guess, but still a far cry from what we imagine, a Diddy birthday party would look like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is that Diddy's lawyers actually argued that this type of meal, the quote unquote standard fare, is exactly why he should be granted bail. Their argument was that his wealth would allow him to have a much different experience during pretrial detention. They're talking private chefs, better living conditions, all of that.
So they're basically saying that by denying him bail, the court is kind of inadvertently creating a system where wealth can influence someone's experience within the justice system.
Exactly. It really touches on this whole concept of a two-tiered justice system, which is it's a huge point of debate in legal circles. And it's not just about luxurious meals. It extends to things like access to top-tier lawyers, the ability to mount a stronger defense. These are all factors that they can be heavily influenced by wealth.
Right. So it's not just about Diddy missing out on, some fancy Thanksgiving dinner. This case potentially raises some serious questions about fairness and equality within the justice system as a whole. What are some of the other arguments that the prosecution used to deny Diddy bail? I mean, I know they cited him as a flight risk, but was there anything else?
Well, yeah, I mean, being a flight risk is, that's a big one. Especially with someone like Diddy, with resources he has at his disposal. I mean, they argue that he could easily, disappear if he wanted to. But there's more to it than that. They really focused on this idea of witness tampering and even potential intimidation of victims.
Yeah, that's some serious stuff. What evidence did they present to support those claims, though? I mean, you can't just throw those accusations around without backing them up, right?
Right. And they did try to build a case. Pointing to what they claim is a pattern of behavior stretching back years. But unfortunately, a lot of the court documents are heavily redacted, to protect the alleged victims.
Of course.
So it's tough to get a complete picture. But from what we can gather, they're alleging that Diddy has used his wealth and his connections to avoid accountability. We're talking things like non-disclosure agreements, financial settlements, even allegations of threats and intimidation tactics.
So they're trying to paint a picture that this isn't just an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern of behavior.
Yeah,
if that's true, I mean that could be pretty damaging to his defense. Did they give any specific examples? I mean, I know a lot of it's redacted, but
they did. But again, a lot of the details are blacked out.
Right.
But they did make accusations of abusive behavior towards both romantic partners and staff. And the main argument is that he used his power, his position, to silence anyone who could potentially speak out against him.
Right, right. It's important to remember, though, that these are just accusations at this point. I mean, Diddy's legal team is vehemently denying everything. They're calling the prosecution's case baseless,
Yeah.
defamatory. Essentially, they're arguing that this is an attempt to tarnish Diddy's reputation and secure a conviction based on weak evidence.
Right, right. And that's a crucial point.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But it's clear that the prosecution is going all in on this. You know,
Yeah.
they're portraying Diddy as someone who believes he's above the law, a predator
Wow.
who has exploited others and used his wealth to hide his actions.
Mhm.
It's a powerful narrative,
Yeah.
and one that the judge seems to be taking seriously, given the repeated denials of bail.
Right, right. It's a reminder that even with someone as high profile as Diddy, the justice system, has to play out. And with a trial set for May 5th, this is far from over. And this whole situation, it really gets you thinking about how wealth and status can influence legal proceedings, even if it's not as obvious as hiring private security while on house arrest.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it goes beyond the actual legal process too.
Yay.
You know, someone with Diddy's resources can shape the public narrative surrounding their case in a way that most people can't. You know,
Yeah.
think PR campaigns, strategic media leaks, even leveraging social media. These are all powerful tools that are more readily available to someone with wealth and influence.
Right. We see that play out all the time, right? It raises serious questions about whether everyone truly has equal access to justice, regardless of their background.
Yeah, that's the core of the issue here. Diddy's case, despite the unusual Thanksgiving angle, it really forces us to confront these uncomfortable questions about power and privilege within the legal system.
And it's not just about Diddy. What are some other examples of this two-tiered justice system that we see in real life? Are there studies or statistics that back this up?
Oh, absolutely. There's a significant body of research that suggests that wealth and status do have an impact on legal outcomes. For example, there was a study by the National Registry of Exonerations. And they found that people who could afford private attorneys
Hmm.
were significantly more likely to be exonerated after wrongful convictions
Yeah.
than those who relied on public defenders.
Wow. That's a pretty stark finding. What are some of the reasons behind that disparity? I mean, is it just about, the quality of the lawyer?
Well, it's multifaceted. I
Yeah.
mean, private attorneys often have more time and resources to devote to individual cases. They can hire investigators, expert witnesses, and really, really dig deep into the evidence.
Mm.
Public defenders, on the other hand, they're often overworked, underfunded,
Mm.
handling massive caseloads that really limit their ability to provide the same level of individualized attention.
So even at the most fundamental level, the playing field isn't necessarily level.
Exactly, exactly. And it goes beyond just legal representation too.
Mm.
Wealth can also influence things like the ability to make bail, the
Wow.
quality of health care received while incarcerated, even the likelihood of being offered a plea deal.
It's almost like having money gives you more options within the system, regardless of your guilt or innocence.
Yeah, yeah. It really is.
That's a pretty sobering thought.
It is. It is. And it highlights the need for reforms aimed at making the justice system more equitable and accessible to everyone.
It sounds like this is a much bigger conversation than just Diddy's Thanksgiving meal.
Oh, it absolutely is. But his situation provides a very real and tangible example of these larger issues at play.
It's a reminder that behind the headlines there are complex systemic problems that need to be addressed.
And that these problems affect real people's lives
Hmm.
in profound ways.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we wrap things up, I'd like to go back to Diddy's case specifically. What can you tell us about the specific charges against him and what they mean in terms of potential consequences? I mean, we touched on it earlier, but I think it's worth digging a little deeper. So we're talking sex trafficking and racketeering charges. Those are incredibly serious. What kind of penalties is Diddy potentially facing here?
Yeah, I mean we're talking serious time. He's facing a minimum of 15 years, if convicted,
Mm.
and a maximum sentence of life in prison.
Wow.
So the stakes are incredibly high, and the severity of these charges, I mean, that's a big part of why the prosecution has been so adamant about keeping him behind bars.
Right.
They argue that not only is he a flight risk, but the nature of the accusation suggests a potential danger to the public.
And Diddy's team, how are they responding to these charges? What's their defense strategy? I mean, obviously they're going to maintain his innocence.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah.
course. They're maintaining his innocence, and they're really pushing back against the prosecution's narratives. You know,
Right.
they're calling the witnesses unreliable, the evidence flimsy,
Mm-hmm.
and suggesting that this is all an attempt to exploit Diddy's fame and fortune for a high-profile conviction.
It sounds like it's going to be a very tough battle in court.
Yeah.
What are some of the key factors that will likely determine the outcome of this case?
Well, the credibility of the witnesses will be crucial. I mean, the prosecution's case seems to rely heavily on their testimonies. So how convincingly they present their accounts, that'll likely have a big impact on the jury.
And what about the evidence itself? Is it strong enough to support the charges?
Well, that's what Diddy's defense team is disputing, right?
Right.
They're arguing that the evidence is circumstantial and open to interpretation. They'll likely try to poke holes in the prosecution's case,
Mm.
highlighting inconsistencies or raising doubts about the validity of the evidence presented.
It's interesting how this case is playing out on two fronts, right? You have the legal battle in the courtroom, but then there's also this court of public opinion.
Hmm.
How do you think public perception of Diddy might impact the trial? I mean, he's a very polarizing figure.
Yeah, he is. He is. I mean, he has a lot of fans and supporters, but he also has his share of critics.
Yeah.
It's a tricky situation. The way this case is portrayed in the media, and the public's reaction to the accusations could definitely have an influence, even if it's subconscious, on the jury's perception.
That's a lot of pressure on everyone involved, right? I mean, the judge, the lawyers, the jury, they're all tasked with making incredibly important decisions based on the evidence and the law, while also navigating this very public and often emotionally charged environment.
Right. And for Diddy, I mean, the stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah.
This trial could not only determine his freedom, but also irrevocably impact his legacy.
So we've got Diddy facing serious charges, a legal battle that's just getting started, and this backdrop of systemic issues within the justice system that this case has brought to the forefront. It's a lot to unpack. What are some of the key takeaways that you hope our listener is walking away with from this deep dive?
Well, I hope first and foremost that they're seeing how a seemingly simple event like a Thanksgiving meal in jail can expose deeper, more complex realities.
Mm.
Diddy's situation, while unique in some ways, it offers a glimpse into the disparities and challenges that exist within the justice system.
Yeah.
It forces us to ask tough questions about fairness, accountability,
Yeah.
and the role of wealth and privilege.
It's a reminder that even in a society that prides itself on equality under the law, there are still significant obstacles to achieving true justice for everyone.
Absolutely.
And it's a call to action, not just to observe these issues, but to engage in finding solutions.
Exactly. This isn't just about Diddy. It's about ensuring a fair and equitable justice system for everyone. It's about recognizing the impact of wealth and privilege, and working to create a system that upholds the principles of justice, regardless of someone's background or social standing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that Diddy's Thanksgiving in jail was much more than just a celebrity news story. It sparked a conversation about much larger issues that deserve our attention. And as Diddy's legal battle continues, it'll be interesting to see how this case further illuminates these systemic challenges and what impact it might have on the ongoing pursuit of a more just and equitable society.
It's a story that will continue to unfold, and we'll certainly be following it closely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it's giving you some food for thought, far beyond the details of a jailhouse Thanksgiving menu.